Hey there, thanks for tuning into the Land and Home Show. Today we're talking about the cost of building a home. Hi, I'm Stephen J.B. Davis, your land specialist and residential realtor here in Central Kentucky and beyond. Today we're talking about building homes. It's a hot topic because some people can't find a home that's already in existence to buy, and some people just prefer not to do that. And so this is this is kind of in the I'm framing this conversation around also buying land. I mean, if you're building a home and you're going through like a traditional subdivision situation, those are easy to find prices. A builder's going to say, you can buy this floor plan for X amount of dollars, and then we'll take you through and you pick all your stuff, whatever. This is more of the custom build sort of situation, a standalone home where you're purchasing land and then you're going to, hire someone to build it. That's what we're talking about. And if you're interested in related sorts of subject matter, like what is the process for that, I've got a video on it somewhere on the screen. Is probably showing up right now. If you're interested in the off-grid sort of situation, I just did a video on solar power and how that works with two really fantastic people, and that's probably on the screen right now. And I also have done a video discussing the things that you ought to consider when you're looking at moving to a very rural space. If you're moving somewhere that isn't necessarily in a city or a town, and things like schools, healthcare access, grocery stores, internet connectivity, crime and safety, that kind of thing. I've done a video on that, so you can watch all of those. I guess I should put a playlist together so they're kind of all grouped together, but in any case, I've at this point put a link above my head or next to me so you can watch videos related to this one, all about, I guess, living in rural spaces, building your own home, how to build, how to borrow, etc. So I just wanted to root us in reality. That is how I work. It's an emotional process. We all know that, buying things, selling things, as big as houses. We're not just buying and selling, lemonade on the side of the road. These are really big, impactful decisions, and feelings come into play. But we also have to deal in truths, in realities, in numbers, in data. And so that's how I'm going to be talking about this. Cost of land, cost of materials, all that kind of stuff, so that you can figure out, is this the path you want to take? Are there different paths? Are there modified paths? Based on maybe what you came into this video thinking versus how you leave the video. So not something to discourage you, just something to help you understand what to expect in today's market. So what I did was I went to realtor.com. They do have some pretty solid writers there. And then I also went on, I think I saw an article in Forbes. Realtor.com claims the national average is about $115 per square foot to build a home. And we'll talk about exactly what that $115 stands for. Forbes said it's about $150, 150 per square foot to build a home. I took those two numbers and I took the average, just because when the two answers are that far apart, it just seems like a good idea to take the average of the two numbers as my working number. So that's $132.50. And then I thought, well, what is around the square foot that most people are building? Like 3,000 square foot home is pretty large. 1,500 is on the smaller side. So I said, I've dealt with people looking for everything between those two numbers. So what's the average of those? 2,250 square feet. So when you multiply $132.50 times 2,250 square feet, you get a total of $298,000. That is about what you could expect to build a home. Now, we're not finished. This video is not that simple, unfortunately. When you're talking about building on land, which is, that's the framework that we're talking in. You want to live out in the country or buy some amount of property to build a home. We have to factor that in too. So $298,000 really is just your cost for exterior. So we're talking about framing, windows, roof. I'm staring at my house to kind of help me stay on track here. That kind of thing. Talking about interior, floors, finishes, that kind of stuff. And then your electrical, plumbing. We're not talking about running it from the road. We're talking about like the literal the guts of the house, like getting the pipes in, like fitting the HVAC system, doing all of the wiring inside the house. So that is what I say, that's what I mean when I say it costs $298,000 to create this 2,250 square foot home, okay? None of this accounts for taste. I don't know how fancy you are, how fancy you're not, whatever. This is just sort of an average kind of idea. So when you break down your $298,000, you can expect a third of that budget to be spent on the exterior. So we're talking about, again, framing, roof, siding, the external features of the house, what you can generally see before you even walk in. The other third is going to be spent on those finishes. So let's see, quick math. Let's just round up to 300 for a second. So you're talking about $100,000 for the outside, $100,000 for the inside. And again, none of this accounts for taste. This is kind of like middle of the road stuff. You're not choosing the fanciest roof. You're not choosing, the fanciest marble. Like the fancier you get, obviously, the more money it's going to cost. So this is just all averages. And then your HVAC, plumbing, electrical, that's going to be about 15% of your budget. So $300,000 is 10% is 30,000. So then half of 30, so $45,000 you're going to spend on the guts of the house, okay? So that's how that 298, I'm rounding up to 300 so that I can do mental math. But that's how that 298,000 breaks down. A third for your exterior, a third for your interior, not accounting for taste, and then 15% for your for the inner workings of the house. You've got to add about a $35,000 premium for your pandemic stuff, basically. All the supply chain issues that we're talking about, the fluctuations in lumber from the time you start to the time you finish, delays, delivery premiums, all that kind of stuff. Realtor.com says or the writer at Realtor.com says you should add about a $35,000 pandemic premium for 2022. This is an article from like this month. So then there's that. What we haven't factored in is appliances, $10,000, easy. I mean, I think a nice washer and dryer set costs $2,200. If you want a decent kitchen set, microwave, refrigerator, oven, and range situation, dishwasher, that's going to run you on the bottom end, I believe, about $7,000. I mean, if you're truly building your dream home, you're not spending, on the white refrigerator that you're as tall at. Like you're getting nicer things. We're not talking $20,000 Sub-Zero refrigerator, but we're not talking about what you may put in a rental home that's easily replaceable either. So you'll easily spend $10K on your appliances. So you've got to think about your incidentals. Incidentals sounds like a very broad, vague thing, but it's a real thing. Things happen in the building process that you're not expecting. Delays, problems that you then have to fix, etc. So I put another 20K in for that, which brings us up to what? That's 353. Then we've not talked about the cost of land, which is going to vary depending on where you are in the world, in the country. But we're just going to talk within an hour of Lexington. Say you don't want to live right in Lexington, plus you can't really find a whole lot of land in Lexington proper. So say you're within an hour. Within an hour, if you're building on an acre, I can tell you you're not building probably what you think you're building. An acre of land anywhere around here is pretty much going to be a deed restricted community where you're not going to be able to build as many houses and whatever you want and however you want it to look. That's not going to happen. So we're not going to start the 1 acre area, because down there, yes, you can get cheaper land, maybe $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, $19,000 for the 1 acre, maybe. but it's not going to be without a whole lot of caveats about what your house looks like, how it sits off the road, all that kind of stuff. So if you're talking about truly building a house that it's what you want, you designed it, or you hired an architect, or you found a plan online or something that you want to execute and make happen in real life, you're probably going to have to be around the 10-acre mark, maybe a little shy of 10 acres, but at least 10 before you can kind of drop off some of these deed restricted communities. And frankly, for you to be able to find just blank acreage. I mean, if you're buying 2 to 3 acres, chances are it already has a house on it. If you're buying the 1 acre, chances are it's going to be in one of those deed restricted sort of rural community settings. So 10 acres, you'll still run into some of that. Oh my gosh, I think it's raining. You'll still run into some of that, but it'll be a lot easier to find 10 acres, 8 acres, 11 acres, 12 acres, where it's just like, here's the land, I can do whatever I want. So that's the metric. That's why I'm using 10 plus acres. And for that, within an hour of Lexington, on the low end, like literally, I found maybe 2 properties. You might be able to find something for around 80K, but most things are going to be probably at least 105, 110, 120. So I stuck with a fairly conservative number of 125 for around a 10 to 15 acres that you'd be building this house on. And I think we left off numerically where we were at 353 to build this house and have appliances and fixtures and all that kind of stuff. Incidentals we've already added. So you add 125 to 353 and you get, I'm getting in dangerous territory here because I'm terrible at mental math. 353,125 is 478. Yeah, I think I did that right. We're at a $478,000 home, 2,250 square feet on 10 to 15 acres to start from scratch. 478. Okay. If that sounds like a lot, it's because it is. Then the other thing that I have not taken into account here is if you're building any outbuildings, that's going to cost you extra money. I have not taken into account if you want a basement. If you want a basement, it's going to be more expensive. I cannot tell you how much more expensive it's going to be, but this 2,200 square foot house, I'm just talking about a 1-level ranch home. You know, there's no upstairs, there's no downstairs. It's just all 1 level. You start building up or you start building below a home, you got to add some money to that total figure. So we're at 478. We have not talked about excavation costs. So I've got a funny story about that. Well, for one, I'll say 35 grand that's just me being conservative. It can cost more. It's a little bit like doing surgery. You start digging and then you don't know what's going to be there. And this is where my funny story comes in. My husband and I were looking at buying a house before we bought this one. We were trying to move back to Lexington here, and there was a home that we really liked. It didn't have a lot of projects to be done. We maybe wanted to like refinish the floors because we didn't like the stain of the floors, but everything else was like, it's pretty perfect. And it was at a price that we didn't love. So we went in at a much lower price, hoping that we could get a deal done, and we couldn't. The people that were selling that house, they stuck to their guns. That house was on the market for about 2 years. And I later found out after I moved here, one of the reasons why they really wanted the price they wanted, which they ended up getting or close to, was because of the amount of money they spent just excavating. Turned out once they started digging, tons and tons of rock. It wasn't just your run-of-the-mill dirt, it was a whole lot of rock. And so instead of like, you know, $30,000, $40,000 excavation costs to get the hole dug for the house, it cost them $100,000, and actually I think a little bit more. So you don't know what you're gonna find. And it's not that everybody is going to have that problem, but I mean, that's the kind of incidental I'm talking about. You want to set aside some money for when stuff goes wrong or unexpectedly. So their excavation costs were about $100 grand before they even poured a foundation. Hopefully you don't run into that problem, but so I would safely say $35K for some excavation costs. So we went from what, 478 to now we are at another 30. I got to split this up. Actually, no, let's add 2 to make it easy. So now we're at 480, and then add another 30. That makes it 510. And then we have 3 left over. So 513, we're at $513,000 for your 2,250 square foot home on 10 and 15 acres. It's a lot of money. So, you know, you got to consider these things, and then you've got to consider time being a factor, right? There's so much delay, and if you're prepared for this, perfect. And this video is almost not for you. But if you've not ever thought through this and you've just focused on, yeah, I really want to build my own house, that's where I'm coming from. I mean, some people have the luxury of time. Some people have the luxury of, I own a house here, I can build this house and it can take as long as it needs to take. Oh, someone's home. But if you've never considered this stuff and you don't have multiple houses that you can live in while your other house is being built, you know, it can take well beyond a year to build a house, well beyond. And I didn't include permit costs because that varies from county to county, and they're more negligible costs. They're the things that probably cost a lot cheaper than anything else that I've talked about. You know, $3,000, $5,000, I don't know. But you know, those are pennies compared to if you're already looking at spending $500,000. If the $3,000 is going to break you, then you really should reconsider building a house at all. So I think that's all I've got for you. I am going to get out of the rain. It's not raining hard, but I don't want to be drenched the longer I sit out here, and this video is long enough. So leave your comments, your questions below. Hopefully this helps you. We've got some cool stuff coming up. I'm going to be interviewing some farmers and homesteaders so you can get a little bit of a taste about what are the realities of living a country life. And there are many ways to do that, which is why I'm interviewing many people that do it in different ways. So until then, adios. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram, landandhomes.co, and we will talk later.